All right, so my name is Jason King. I am the co-founder of the Academy School of Blockchain, but how I got into blockchain is I started two of the world's first cryptocurrency-based charities, a company called Sean's Outpost that feeds the homeless using cryptocurrency, and thank you, and another company called Unsung, which is an app that's like Uber for feeding the homeless. So this panel that I'm going to moderate is something that's very important to me. It's companies that are utilizing blockchain for humanitarian and impact causes. And so what we're going to do is we're going to introduce each one of the panelists. They're going to do a small pitch on their ICO, and then we're going to open it up to some questions and discussions about how we can leverage this amazing new technology for the highest impact in the world. And so we're going to start it off here with Jimmy Snoek. Come on up.
I'm Jimmy. I'm the business development lead of Tykn, and we build digital identity management tools for governments and NGOs.
Gotta go back.
We do this to provide mainly higher socioeconomic inclusion to vulnerable countries, which we are doing with the Red Cross right now for a project in St. Martin. And the reason why our focus is so humanitarian is actually because the story started with our CEO, Uzzell, who is an invisible man, because his birth certificate got lost, got destroyed actually during the Gulf War. And as a result, when he came to work in the Netherlands for 2 years, after his work permit expired, he had to spend 2 years in a refugee camp. And here he met lots of people who had the same problem with identifying documents. And being an early Bitcoin miner, he thought, you know, what if we could marry this technology and this problem? So what we've built is a distributed identity attestation authority system, which is basically a fancy way of saying an identity system for attestations for the registration and identification of people, which is in a privacy-compliant manner, in a way that the Red Cross doesn't have to save any data, and people keep their private data proprietary. And we're working on this with the Red Cross right now. Then further, we have our project Zinc, Zero Invisible Children, which is our vision and big goal of establishing a standard for the issuing of birth notifications and certificates, so that no child has to be invisible, born invisible, from this moment on. And yeah, last week we won Best ICO at the Blockchain Innovation Conference. Really excited about that. Was awarded by Prince Constantine. So yeah, we're excited about that, excited about the project in St. Martin, and excited to be here. Thank you.
All right, thanks, man. All right, coming up next, we got Jesse Uzzell.
All right. Come on down. Thanks, guys. So, my mic's on? Yeah. Hi, I'm Jesse Uzzell. I'm the CEO of Climate Futures, and we are launching the One Planet token. We are very passionate about climate change, and we're passionate about helping our planet. And the reason we went to this blockchain solution is we got tired of waiting for governments to move forward. And we've been working with climate projects around the world for 20 years now. I guess they want to put the, well, thank you very much. Okay, so basically what we're doing is crypto carbon finance with our One Planet token. When you purchase the token, you're supporting forest conservation and small-scale renewable energy projects around the world. It's also a way of monetizing eco-assets. There's a lot of different ones available in markets. The markets aren't very liquid or fungible. This platform solves some of these issues and allows small players and individuals to participate in these markets. Another thing that we're doing as part of the whole movement to put the crypto community on a sustainable path is with the One Planet platform, we have something called the Crypto Climate Alliance, which is a alliance of partners, tech providers, project developers, retail platforms that are utilizing our token. For example, you may have heard of INS, which is an ICO and crypto solution for consumer goods. So we'll be offsetting transport emissions related to the retail purchasing of, well, grocery products and so forth on their platform. The other thing that we're going to do is we're going to launch our crypto carbon fund, which will finance new projects in this space, because we realize that basically the crypto mining generates a lot of CO2 emissions around the world. We're not on a sustainable path. But basically, our climate projects always have a renewable energy component, And by combining this, we can basically get a triple win. We get money from the electricity sales, from the carbon credit sales, and from the crypto mining. So that's basically the triad of activities that we're engaging in. One Planet Platform, the Crypto Climate Alliance, and the Crypto Carbon Fund. So
all right,
happy
guys,
to take any
give it up.
questions later. Thanks.
All right, coming up next to the stage, we have Dan Bates from ImpactPPA.
My fan club. Good morning. My name is Dan Bates. I'm with ImpactPPA. Real quickly, by show of hands, how many people think the blockchain will be an important driver for social impact, blockchain technology? I'm with you. How many people who would invest in social impact projects don't care about their ROI? All the hands went down, right? Right, there's a few out there. What we do is we install renewable energy products in developing nations. So the problem that we're trying to overcome is how do you electrify the 1.2 billion people who don't have power, and how do you access those billions of people who have inconsistent power? In the developing worlds, nobody has identity, right? They don't have credit. They don't have reputation. Well, we've created a technology in our solutions section that allows people to now purchase power using a mobile device. 98% of the developing world is now connected through a mobile platform as of 2017. So what we can do now is we can give people access to energy by installing a microgrid, putting it up in a remote area, and it can be as small as a rooftop device or on up to multi-megawatts, connected to a smart meter. That smart meter then is addressed on their cell phone. And I'm happy to have you guys come by our booth, and I'll show you a running app on how it works. We can purchase power in India today if you'd like. But what that does is that gives people access to energy, which builds societies. It builds commerce. Energy is the framework for people to move forward, and we have an ability to now help them do that. We have a couple of tokens that we issue. Our MPQ is what's used as the base token to fund projects, and then a stable currency, which we call the Gen Credit. That's how people transact in a developing world. The returns, of course, we think we can get the investor. You guys are all investors here. You're concerned about blockchain and your return on investment to that mythical 10x, the way we've set it up through a staking process using a security token. Happy to go into more detail with that, on that with you whenever you'd like, and please come by and see what we have to offer. Thank you.
All right, fantastic. All right, and last but not least, Martin Tiani from Grapevine World.
Hello, I'm Martin Tiani, doing standardization since 20 years. I'm trying to connect all the legacy systems worldwide, and what we are trying now is to build up a new initiative. It's called grapevineworld, to bring all the standardized health information exchanges together. I'm coming out of the healthcare sector. The initiative is based on 3 pillars: to build up a global backbone for data exchange. The second pillar is to run a marketplace for standardized products worldwide. And the third one is to run a kind of utilization for the data itself. So therefore, we are running the blockchain. The blockchain itself is covering, I think, the accounting pretty good. We are not able, especially in the healthcare sector, to replace all the legacy systems, because in an electronic health record, you have to at least consider, let's say, 50 or 60 different standards. But blockchain is a good way to leverage the whole system. I'm happy to be here, of course, and yeah, let's see what we are able to answer in the panel discussion. Thank you.
Sounds great. All right, guys. So all of you guys have an interesting project that you're working on. I think everything here, I think everyone in the room would agree that you guys are all working on important issues. So I've been in the humanitarian nonprofit NGO space for a long time. And so one of the questions that I run into a whole lot from the general public is, aren't the things that you're working on things that governments should be working on? So what I'd like to do is I'd like to sort of start from this side and go down the panel, and I would like for you guys to explain to the audience why you think that your solution has a market advantage over what a government would be able to do in a similar situation.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. I think actually a big bottleneck right now for a lot of the innovation here and a lot of the things that we are trying to do is education. And that's education on a national level, on a supranational level, and especially within governments. So this is, for us, it's been quite a big focus to educate within the governments, especially in the Netherlands and within the EU as well. Because that's something that needs to be solved first, to lift that barrier of education within the government. If they understand, we can make them adopt.
All right.
Okay, well, with the topic of climate change, I don't know, how many of you follow climate change policy and developments around the world? Just raise a hands here. So most of you know that we have this thing called the Paris Agreement that launches in 2020. We had something before that called the Kyoto Protocol that started in 1998, and I started working in this space way back then. And as probably most of you know, Trump pulled the US out of the Paris Agreement, so we're on track to leave the Paris Agreement in the next few years. It's a 3-year runway to do that. So, governments are a help and a hindrance. I mean, we're going 2 steps forward, 1 step back. We know that climate change is real. I live in Miami Beach. We get flooding events when it's sunny. You add a little bit of rain to that, we get a lot of flooding. We're feeling the impacts today, and I just got fed up with waiting for governments. It's not that governments aren't acting, they're just acting too slow. And what I love about this community is, the positive energy, the disruptive nature, we can do things without waiting for governments. It's decentralized, it's crowds, supporting projects. And so that's what the platform's about, really. It's about empowering people that want to take action, giving them a platform for doing that, showing them the projects that they're supporting through the purchase of the One Planet token, and showing the transformational effect that these projects have on people's lives. So projects like cleaner cook stoves in Africa, small-scale renewables in places that don't have access to clean energy. Actually, ImpactPPA is one of our partners. Yep. We help them monetize the carbon credits, that their projects can produce. So basically, it's an inclusive platform. That's why I said we have this crypto climate alliance, which, again, tech providers, project developers like ImpactPPA, and retail platforms to help monetize the assets. So basically, we're faster than governments, but we're working in the same direction. We're just pulling now instead of and maybe pushing instead of just waiting. So
I think that's a good answer. Dan?
So I think what we have to do first is define what is a government, right? If they're a service provider at the end of the day.
Your mic is falling a little.
Can you hear me?
There you go.
Okay.
All right.
So if we define a government as a service provider, in the countries that I work, we're beyond the edge of the grid in many cases. So that's where the services stop. You have villages all over the world that have no access to clean water or healthcare or education. A lot of that is because they don't have energy. And the governments are not really stepping up to extend the grid. It's too costly these days. I think that energy is going to go the way of the cell phone. It's going to skip over the landline, it's going to skip over the transmission line, and become a distributed solution. And that's happening all over the world right now. So in a sense, what we're doing is we're installing an energy system that provides for services that the government is now ignoring. So when we set up a microgrid and a payment rail, essentially through a cryptocurrency, we now give access to the clean water guy or the healthcare guy to come in behind us. They no longer have to bring all that gear with them. They just attach to our energy rail, which is a foundational rail for a society, and then they can improve the lot in life for those people out there. That's really a fundamental change to the way things have been done, the way governments have been treating third world or developing nations, whatever you want to call them, so that now if you can connect power to consumers and show a very clear transactional layer that's all managed by the blockchain so it's trusted and it's transparent, then you have an offering that not only is good for residential customers or small businesses, hospitals, we do clinics all over the world, but now you have a whole layer of offerings for people to come in behind and start paying for that power that we generate through this clean energy and a cryptocurrency that really, I think, will exponentially accelerate the quality of life all around the world in these developing nations.
Fantastic. All right, Martin.
So what I learned, let's say 10 years ago, we connected Europe, all the different European countries in the healthcare sector. And it's a pity that the government always inventing the wheel again and again. What they are doing is they're spending funds, billions, and always after 2 years you will hear, okay, we have to run a new project. So at the end, you will find at least 30 up to 40 initiatives running worldwide at the moment. All the initiatives, they're trying the same, to connect the world. And so that was the reason why I started the Grapevine initiative. I said, you know, it's not about the technology, because we have done it already, together with many, many other partners, not just us. So why inventing the wheel again and again? And I want to see in the near future a real system running for the global data exchange, which is considering the HIPAA compliance, data protection, of course, GDPR in Europe, so that you're able to really exchange data in a safe way, and of course that you're able to utilize the data in the network. And we're coming out of the healthcare sector because, of course, we are deeply involved, and we see certain use cases. Let's say a pharmaceutical company is able to get data for a clinical trial, and then, of course, you're getting tokens therefore, but you can reuse the tokens also for a second opinion in an international expert network. And we are doing also a good job also in the energy sector, smart grid and smart meter. So we try to reuse the methodology of standardization in all different verticals. And I see a big chance with this, let's call it crypto wave, is pushing a little bit all the governments worldwide. And they're struggling, of course, in regard of regulations, but they have to move now. Otherwise, all the investors are running away, and they're going to the Cayman Islands and whatever. So I think it's a good momentum. We should see it in a quite optimistic way. And that's what was always my wish, that we get a focus to the topics versus to the parties in the politics. Because I'm not really interested in the parties, I'm interested in the topics, that somebody is realizing something.
Here, here. All right, so my next question is going to be for Jesse. Jesse, climate change is really important to me. I think that it could quite possibly be the largest problem that we face as a species. A lot of people talk about how we're destroying the Earth, and I don't actually think that that's true. I actually think that we're just destroying our ability to live on the Earth. Yeah. So, you know, we've had these systems in the past. We've had things like cap and trade that haven't worked out. And so I think it would be great if you could sort of explain why your blockchain-based solution would not be susceptible to the same problems as, say, cap and trade.
Well, I would have to disagree with you. I think cap and trade has worked out. It's just that the experiment, this economic experiment of carbon trading, has had its ups and downs. And like any pilot initiative, you know, you have a learning curve before you get things working smoothly. But it's more along the lines of, we don't have enough caps, and we don't have enough trading, and we don't have enough compliance markets. So our solution is focused in the voluntary space, not the compliance space, because basically companies in the compliance space don't necessarily need our solution. However, that whole market is moving toward blockchain, and 5 years down the road, we'll all be communicating using blockchain technology. But to answer your question, why will it work? Because basically, what we can do is we can lower the barriers to entry, get rid of the transaction costs that keep small players from participating in the markets. Okay, and we basically, for most people in this audience, how many people buy one cocktail a month? Like one glass of wine, one cocktail a month. Okay, for that, $11, $12 a month, you could offset your average emissions for a year. Okay, so it's about $120 worth of One Planet tokens. So to put that in perspective, you can be climate neutral. And I think a lot of people would like to do that. I think it's just most people want to take action about climate change. They don't feel that policymakers are doing enough. They feel like a lot of policymakers have their head in the sand, whether they're Republican or Democrat. And this gives them, a platform for action.
So as a follow-up to that, what are your plans in terms of providing liquidity in the marketplace? And in cap and trade, it sort of came in with its own standard marketplace. Like if you participated in the system, you knew how you could exchange value out of it.
Yeah.
What's your plan for sort of supporting that liquidity in the market?
Well, essentially, in our system, it's and you have to come by the booth or look at the white paper for more information. But basically, the tokens, they get reused, so they're recycled. So the tokens are a proxy for the carbon credits. The carbon credits actually get retired in our registries, so that's another barrier to entry. Most people don't have an account in a registry because it costs money, you have to pay for it, you have to do these things. So they don't really want to buy the carbon credit, they want the utility of the carbon credit. That's what the One Planet offers. It offers the utility of the carbon credit, and it offers the transparency that you don't get if you go to some other internet provider of carbon offsetting. With the blockchain solution, you see which project you're supporting. It's there in the blockchain. So there's a connection. So
Great.
I think, so to answer the question on the liquidity, there's a liquidity reserve that we manage.
Fantastic. I'm going to move on to Dan. Dan, so ImpactPPA, impact investing for humanitarian causes.
Right.
Explain to our audience what the benefit is to that and how it is better than existing solutions today.
I don't know what better. Okay? It's just different, right? If the socially minded investor who wants to do good, right? They say do well and do good in impact investing. I think it's an opportunity. I think it's a real investment opportunity where you have the ability to put tangible assets on the ground, benefiting people's lives, and then have a clear path to payment, right? That's a fundamental change to the way historically renewable energy projects have been funded all over the world. That's been the problem. That's one of the things that I identified when I started this business about a year ago. I've been doing renewables for 10 years all over the world. And there's a disconnect between how a project gets financed and how it gets paid for. Typically, it's the World Bank, IFC, something like that, right? And what happens is it takes years for a project to get funded, if it ever does get funded.
Exactly.
The sovereign guarantees in many countries are not valid. Bank guarantees, letters of credit, things like that don't work. So what we did is we said, okay, there's an asset that is tokenized, essentially, wind and solar and batteries and smart meters and whatever else might be there. And that is tokenized so that the owner of that asset, the MPQ holder, now has a clear path to revenue. So one of the things that we've done is we've taken a pipeline that we have now, which is about 180 megawatts, and over the life of a PPA, a power purchase agreement, that's almost $1.7 billion in revenue over the life of these PPAs. So these things generate real money for the investors, the owners of the Impact token. The other piece of that is we're now working on a project in India, which is going to be, when fully realized, what I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but will be the largest single blockchain project in the world. The Indian government is trying to restart.
Largest by what metric?
I'm sorry?
Largest by what metric?
Yeah.
No, I'm asking, largest by which metric?
50 million women are going to be lifted up out of poverty.
That's a lot of people.
That's a lot of people.
Yeah.
The first tranche of it, which represents about a quarter of 1%, is 125,000 women.
Wow.
Which we're starting on probably in the next 90 days. What they're doing is they're restarting their textile industry called Harit. The government will put a loom in everyone's home, in a woman's home, run by renewable energy. Imagine what the carbon offset's going to be when we get to that scale.
Yeah,
right? It's
fantastic.
Huge what we can do. And this generates revenue for the investor and return on their investment is how this works.
Fantastic. I'm going to come over to Jimmy. Jimmy, sorry, I'm trying to get to your slide here. All right, so you're working on a project that's also very dear to my heart, things that I have worked on. Could you talk about how your project is going to be maybe not better, but maybe a different solution to the existing competitors, and maybe talk about what the competitive landscape looks like in the market that you're in currently?
Sure. Well, the identity landscape is huge. And it's huge for a reason, because identity has a very broad scope. So there's various different aspects to identity that all have their own little issues, and they have their own niches. And the verification part, authentication part, identification, attestation, governance, etc. But what we focus on is, well, first of all, the humanitarian space, and within that, how attestations are done in developing countries. So what we're doing with the Red Cross, or how it's going now at present time for NGOs, when they go to register people, when they go to a country that's been impacted by a man-made or a natural disaster, they go there and they have to register the people, often on paper, which gets ported into an Excel sheet, gets put on the central server there. And it takes a lot of time, and there's also no interoperability between programs. So if I'm a potential beneficiary and I want to register for the shelter program, I also have to register for the food voucher program, unconditional cash program, etc., separately per separate NGO. Then also, once the NGO leaves, they have to delete the data for a lot of countries because there's privacy laws in place.
Right.
So that's a huge issue. So that's, but something they also realized is that there's a trust problem in a lot of these developing countries because they don't trust outside organizations coming in to provide aid because they've been taught to not trust their government or the institutions there simply because there's a lot of corruption. So trust works a lot more on a community basis. And the Red Cross realized that, and so they started working together with these community-based organizations like churches and schools, because the people, they work more on a community basis. Like, I trust my mother because she's my mother. I trust my pastor because I've known him for 20-odd years, and he's a man of God, etc. And that's why they started leveraging these community-based organizations for the registration. And what we've done is basically digitize that and allow for the peer-to-peer attestations also between the pastors and the people, so they can attest to the identity of these people for the registering for them as beneficiaries, so they can expedite aid a lot more efficiently and a lot more quickly.
Fantastic. All right, Martin, I'm going to do the same question. If you could talk about the competitive landscape and how Grapevine sort of what the advantages of Grapevine are to whatever competitors.
I think the big difference, or the biggest difference between others, other ICOs or other crypto companies, is that we are based on the standardization. We are keeping the interoperability. We are doing this since 20 years. And beside all this fancy, let's say, blockchain framework, you have to connect the legacy systems. You have out there, let's say, thousands of proprietary silos, and you have to know how you connect them. Otherwise, you're not able to get access to the data. So what we are able is to run a kind of consolidation process in the organization itself. And if this is done, then you're able to access the data in a standardized way, keeping the data protection, keeping all the GDPR, the HIPAA compliant stuff, and all the stuff that you need. Yeah. And I think that's the biggest difference.
All right. So guys, we're coming to the end. We got about a minute left. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give each one of you guys 15 seconds to do a quick wrap up, and then we're going to call it. So we're going to start on that end with Martin and just work our way down. So 15 seconds.
Yes. My wish is really that we are ending up in a community where we are able in a convenient way to exchange globally the data, not just healthcare, also energy and justice and so on. And yes, that's the wish.
Awesome. Dan.
We've been doing this for 10 years all over the world. I think we've got a system that makes sense. It's deployable. It's ready to go today. I'd love to talk to the folks out here about what we're doing and seeing how we can get people involved in this movement to bring power to the developing world.
Awesome. Jesse.
Just a quick show of hands again. How many people think climate change is real? Okay. All right. Well, you can feel a little bit better. We're the environmental sponsor for this conference, and we've sponsored this conference to be climate neutral. This is the second blockchain conference that's been climate neutral. The first was in Dubai, and it's with a project in the Congo rainforest that conserves a large tract of rainforest there and helps the local communities. So you can read about it in the conference brochure. So
Great.
thank you very much.
Yeah, so despite the fact that we're already implementing and the code is written and we're doing these projects, we haven't actually done an ICO yet. We haven't even done a private sale yet. But the white paper is in the works now. It's going to be released in just about a month. So yeah, keep your eyes out for that, and follow us on social media, etc. Yeah,
Awesome,
hit me up.
everybody. You're going to hear a lot of interesting projects this week. But it's important to remember that with this new technology comes a new responsibility. And I'd like to just thank all of our panelists here for taking that responsibility seriously and trying to bring help to those people in the world that need it. Thank you, everybody. Round of applause.
All right, the
Thank you.
Humanitarian and Environmental panel.
Thank you.
Thank you.